In the heyday of the British Empire, the world witnessed the fateful, gruesome assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, setting the stage for the cataclysmic events of World War I. Picture a world in the mid-20th century, still grappling with the profound scars from the war. Over 20 million lives were claimed in the muddy trenches and bloody battlefields. It was the war that shattered the world, and it left a legacy of devastation. But little did the world know at the time, this was just the beginning of a series of events that would lead to an even more horrific conflict. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, was a document that cast a long shadow over the future. During this era, Germany was rising as a formidable European power, thanks to rapid technological advancements that were reshaping society. The Treaty of Versailles imposed a crushing burden on Germany, demanding an astronomical 132 billion gold marks in reparations. To put this staggering figure in perspective, it was roughly 3.5 times the entire GDP of Germany at that time. Faced with this daunting financial obligation, the German government resorted to a grand debasement of their currency in order to liquefy their debt. But this strategy exacted a heavy toll on their populace. As Germany grappled with economic hardship and its citizens bore the weight of an insurmountable war debt, a ripple effect began to unfold. Soon, other nations, including the United Kingdom and the United States, abandoned the gold standard. This marked the beginning of a seismic shift away from financial stability linked to a tangible benchmark like gold. The stage was set for a new chapter in history to unfurl. In the aftermath of these momentous events, Adolf Hitler ascended to power in Germany, and the seeds that led to World War II gathered ominously on the horizon. After World War II, we bore witness to a profound societal transformation. The 1950s marked a golden era of post-war fiscal stimulus and the consumerization of war technologies. The global population surged, witnessing growth rates of 30 to 40%, forging interconnected bonds across nations. The post-war era also witnessed the establishment of the Bretton Woods system, which pegged currencies to the United States dollar, which was in turn pegged to gold, thus cementing the world's increased reliance on interconnected economies. This financial paradigm, in many ways, served as a fortification against the ominous specter of a Third World War. The 60s brought with them a phenomenon of historical significance, the entry of the first baby boomers into the workforce. This generation, the largest in history up to that point, unleashed a torrent of demand that reverberated through society. Markets were inundated, prices surged, and a colossal demand shock unfurled. The sheer numbers, approximately 75 million strong, thrusting themselves into the economic sphere, caused the nation to grapple with mounting deficits and dwindling gold reserves. The United States, in particular, experienced considerable challenges, eventually severing its ties to the gold standard entirely in 1971. As a consequence, the world made its inexorable transition onto a fiat currency system. The 1970s bore witness to a phenomenon that held profound implications for the broader socio-economic landscape, the Great Inflation. It's important to note that this wasn't solely a monetary event, it was rooted in demographics. With the baby boomers flexing their economic muscle, the demand for goods and services skyrocketed. However, there was a catch. Real wage growth remained stagnant for the subsequent 5 decades. An increasingly competitive workforce flooded the labor market, creating a scenario where the supply of labor consistently outpaced demand. Consequently, there was little incentive for businesses to raise wages. Money began to decouple from productivity growth, an alarming symptom of a system experiencing a fraying of the social and economic fabric. The emergence of angry extremes on both the political right and left became increasingly apparent. The root of this turbulence lay in the economic realm, where many were being left behind, while the march of progress increasingly only benefited the rich. Politics, as it often does, flowed downstream from these economic tributaries. Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, each in their respective countries, implemented strategies to buoy their support bases. Thatcher allowed low-income earners to purchase their previously government-provided housing, fostering a generation that would be ensnared in the relentless cycle of low-earning, high-debt living. Reagan, on the other hand, orchestrated a surge in credit availability, effectively unleashing the era of Wall Street dominance that defined the 1980s. Property and stock prices soared, but ordinary individuals found themselves unable to purchase these ballooning assets as their wages stagnated. People who were priced out of the market, yet still sought to capitalize on the soaring asset prices, increasingly borrowed money in order to invest. The more they borrowed, the more prices rose. This frantic quest to capture the elusive American dream by amassing debt-ridden assets ultimately fostered the emergence of a society where appearances of wealth became increasingly divorced from reality. The crash of 1987 struck like a bolt from the blue, and Alan Greenspan, then at the helm of the Federal Reserve, reacted by cutting interest rates. This action, taken outside the context of a recession, offered a glimpse of the central bank's evolving role in bailing out Wall Street. It set a precedent for the Federal Reserve's future interventions, and the delicate interplay between financial markets and monetary policy became increasingly apparent. If you're enjoying this film, don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel for more. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 led to the unraveling of communism. Simultaneously, China was beginning its journey of opening up to the world, and the World Trade Organization was emerging as a global force. Workers in developed countries now found themselves competing with counterparts in developing nations, driving down wages in the West while consumer prices still rose. The Asian markets experienced a historic boom, largely fueled by dollar leverage. However, this house of cards was destined to crumble as the Asian financial crisis of the late 1990s devastated the Eastern Seaboard. Immediately following this was the internet boom of the early 2000s. Greenspan intervened once again by reducing interest rates and saving Wall Street from the consequences of its speculative excesses. All these events culminated in the shock of the great financial crisis of 2008. The extent of the contagion this time was staggering. The Federal Reserve slashed interest rates once more, which proved insufficient. And so, a novel tool emerged: quantitative easing. Quantitative easing is a technique used by the central bank to purchase financial assets from banks and other institutions. This provides the financial system with liquidity and stimulates an artificial demand while alleviating the stress in the banking system. QE marked a radical departure from conventional monetary policy. It was a response to a debt crisis, where allowing the collateral to plummet to zero would have dire consequences for the entire global financial system. With the Federal Reserve's newfound resolve to backstop the markets, a wave of speculation and leverage surged through the United States stock market. Meanwhile, the baby boomers began to retire, contributing to a decline in the labor force participation rate. When there are fewer workers, it becomes challenging to sustain the same levels of production and output. This can result in slower economic growth, reduced GDP, and lower standards of living. A declining labor force leads to long-term fiscal challenges, particularly in the context of pay-as-you-go pension and healthcare systems. This landscape set the stage for what would soon be known as the everything bubble. By 2012, it was evident that a profound generational shift was underway. The baby boomers, a generation of 75 million, were entering retirement, while the millennials, a staggering 85 million strong, were entering their prime earning years. However, the economic landscape they faced was vastly different. The persistent stagnation of real wage growth since the 70s meant that many millennials had little to show for their efforts. They were facing an economy vastly transformed from that of their predecessors, one where free capital was funding innovation at an unprecedented pace, promising to displace traditional employment on a grand scale. An insurmountable challenge loomed. Central banks, in their efforts to prevent a financial cataclysm, found themselves compelled to print ever greater quantities of money. This marked a treacherous path toward exponentially increasing monetary debasement, a prospect that stirred fear and uncertainty among the populace. The bedrock of this narrative lies in the realization that we stand at the precipice of a generational transition. As the baby boomers retire and the millennials step into the economic forefront, the world is on the cusp of an evolving populace. The economic and financial systems that have previously sewn our culture together are strained, and they're showing signs of vulnerability. The traditional monetary and fiscal policy tools appear increasingly ill-equipped to address the challenges of this new era. How society navigates this juncture will shape not only the future of economies and financial systems, but also the very essence of human existence in this digital age. This brings us to the ultimate question. How can we navigate the turbulent seas ahead? As millennials facing a landscape fraught with uncertainty, can we chart a course toward a more stable and prosperous future? The answer, intriguingly, may lie in a revolutionary concept that has been steadily gaining momentum since the great financial crisis: Bitcoin. So, where does this journey lead us? It has become clear that the challenges we face are deeply systemic, entwined in the very structure of our economic and financial systems. This structural imbalance has manifested as a profound divergence between asset prices and wages, leading the current system to destroy value from the middle class and poor and transfer it to the rich. The advent of the digital age, accompanied by demographic shifts and technological innovations, has upended traditional models. As society stands at the cusp of a generational transition, the choices that will be made in the coming years will hold profound consequences. Bitcoin offers a possible path around an increasingly strained system that no longer works for the vast majority of people in the world. It offers a path around the growing unrest and potential for yet another bloody military-industrial conflict. Bitcoin is simultaneously a call option on the future and a hedge against currency debasement, offering individuals a unique store of value that they can hold individually at their fingertips in a world where traditional assets are increasingly fraught with control and censorship. Yet, Bitcoin's ascent is far from assured. The journey ahead is not without its perils, yet it is also teeming with promise. The exponential age beckons, promising a more egalitarian future. It poses profound questions about the nature of work, value, and human existence. Will the future be dystopian, marked by rising inequality and social discord? Or can we harness the forces of Bitcoin's innovation and decentralization to usher in a more utopian vision? Find out now by watching this next film about Bitcoin's impact on our civilization's energy. If you enjoyed this documentary, please like and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to be notified about new documentaries every week.